Good morning. So my name's Heather Norlander, and first and foremost, I would say I'm a disciple of Jesus. I'm a wife, mother of 4, and soon to be a grandmother. I have 2 businesses. One is a medical massage clinic, and I help people that come in that are hurting. I have 6 employees, other therapists, and we bill medical insurance, blah, blah, blah. I also have just started an education center for body workers or other massage therapists to learn advanced skills. Here at JBC, my husband and I have been attending since 2017, and I direct or coordinate 2 different ministries here. One is a trunk or treat event that we put on for our community. We started it up after COVID again, and we had about 1,200 people for our first year. So if you were listening to Dee, there was like closer to 2,000, but I'm just gonna. I also direct a ministry called Teen Reach Adventure Camp, and we serve at-risk youth and teenagers. We take them out into a country setting. It's a 3-day camp for girls and a 3-day camp for boys. We keep them separate. Those are overnight camps, and Jefferson Baptist has, we've really been blessed in this, and every year it's growing. This last year we had almost 50 volunteers and served 30 children from the foster care system. Upon coming to JBC, one of the very first things that my husband and I did was join a ministry called Dinners for 8. This was started by a couple that had gone through Dee's leadership class, Josh and Kayla Shetler. And the concept there was you get 6 people or 3 couples. Doesn't have to be couples or whatever, but you get 6 people from the church, and they alternate places for their dinners, and then you invite 2 people from the community or who are not going to church, and it's a very non-threatening way to share the love of Jesus with people over a meal. It's also a great way to get to know the church family. And we were new, so we thought that would be a great way to get involved right off the bat. The second thing we did as a couple, even though we didn't get to go at the same time, was Dee's leadership class. And so for the first leadership 1, he does the girls and the boys separately because he's afraid of making us cry. Why did we do that? Why did we see the need? First and foremost, we live in troubled times. Our world, our nation, our state, our churches, our families, they're all in trouble. People get offended at a misspoken word, and they want to sue you and cancel you, and try to destroy your life. Families are broken. Parents do not teach their children how to obey. They don't teach them how to have self-control or how to regulate their moods or respect adults. They don't teach them how to have a study ethic or a work ethic. And some families don't teach their kids any ethics at all. They allow their kids to lead the family instead of the parents leading the kids. And they're not subjected to any boundaries. They come home from school, they're put on their electronic devices, and then left by themselves until parents either get home from school, they don't share meals together. There's a whole lot of things that are not godly that are happening, of course. And this is happening even in our Christian families. Politicians and the media lie, and they divide us from each other in an effort to gain control. Yet these are our leaders. These are the people that we're supposed to look up to. Our communication with each other has been reduced to sending texts, tweets, or if you're under 30, Snapchats. People don't talk to each other except to pass information. Gone are the days when a 13-year-old girl would sit on the phone. Remember the ones with the cord that stretched really far away, and they'd sit in the other room and they'd talk for like an hour and a half to 2 hours to their friends. Yeah, that's gone. Gone are the days when boys would ride their bikes down to the park and like hang out with each other and wrestle. That's gone too. But people are hurting, and they're longing for what this world cannot provide. Unity, strong families, community, a sense of belonging, friends they can trust and rely on. Our society no longer teaches us how to build healthy relationships at all, or healthy families, or friendships, or communities. Without biblical teaching, one-on-one biblical teaching on how to build our lives and character on the firm foundation of Christ, our families and our communities are crumbling. Do you know that 61% of millennials take a prescription drug? 61%. And that's mostly antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. Children as young as 5 are medicated because they have no self-control and cannot focus in school. Or they're depressed. They're literally clinically depressed at the age of 5. Yet these are our future leaders. So people cannot get there on their own. Jesus taught his disciples, both individually and as a group, before ever sending them out to make disciples or preach or teach. And then even then, he didn't send them out on their own, but he sent them in twos to support and help each other. We are not meant to lead individualistic lives, yet today in 2023, we are more isolated and divided from each other than we have ever been in history. Yet, we preach from the pulpit to reach out to the lost without ever giving the members of our congregation the tools to do this. Then we wonder why nobody will step up and invite people to church, or why they won't reach out to the lost, or start a ministry, or help in a ministry, or even have a Bible study with somebody. Our churches as a whole are shrinking year after year. Why? I believe that it's a lack of purpose and a lack of community. But how does that change? Developing leaders. Leaders are not necessarily born, they are made. Jesus didn't call leaders to become his disciples and start his churches. He called ordinary people and then taught and transformed them into leaders. So I'm going to circle back to the leadership class that I took from Dee. You might wonder, what did I learn from taking the leadership class? Because you see me up here, and I'm a go-getter, you can tell, real rock star, right? Well, I came from one of these broken homes. My parents they were alcoholics, and they didn't do a whole lot of investing and teaching in us children. So without that, in fact, I was actually quite the opposite of living a godly life throughout much of my life. So I can say really truthfully that without this class, I probably would have never started the ministries that I'm involved in. I would have been selfish with my time, my money, and my heart. I would have told myself that I'm okay. I read my Bible, my family's pretty good, I go to church, we're in. And one of the things that I learned about leadership from Dee's class was how to look outside myself and look at others with the eyes of Jesus, to lay aside my selfishness and to love them with the heart of Jesus. I personally saw that there was a need in our community of lost teenagers in the foster care system. These are hopeless kids, and they're looking for someone to love them. Did you know that actually every single day in America, 55 children from the foster care system just disappear? They're gone. They don't even know. They're classified as runaways, but often most of these kids are actually taken and they're trafficked for sex. There's nobody to look for them. Nobody canvasses the neighborhoods looking for them. They don't get their picture on a milk carton anymore. But they're just listed as runaways, and that's it. They're gone. And after 6 months, the state can just assume that they're never coming back, and they're cleared off the system. They'll close the case. They fill our prisons, live on the streets, et cetera, et cetera. Yet people shrug their shoulders and shake their head, thinking that there's nothing that can be done. Now, what do you think would happen in these kids' lives if a leader or someone that they trusted stood up and taught them Jesus is their personal Savior? Well, because of our camp, I get to actually see what happens. I get to see broken kids get healed, filled with the knowledge that Jesus knows them by name. I get to see them develop homes or hopes and dreams for their lives of healthy homes, healthy families, going to college, reaching for something beyond themselves, and I get to teach them about the love of Jesus. I've become the hands and the feet of Jesus because of the leadership skills I learned in Dee's class. I've taken steps in faith and in prayer because every year something blows up, and every year God provides. I would have been overwhelmed, shut down, and just given up if I had not taken the leadership class and developed the skills that I learned there. While in the class, I learned the importance of daily disciplines in a setting that held me accountable. Daily Bible reading, prayer, you guys are going through the whole list, I'm sure. They are all covered in the leadership class, and each one of these things has developed, deepened my faith, bringing me closer to God and learning how to listen to his voice. So I have a question to ask you. Wouldn't it be great as a pastor to have your congregation growing in their faith and love for each other? Getting out of their comfort zones and being enthusiastic about a ministry versus looking like a deer in the headlights when you ask them to do something? Have your church actually become a family and a part of the community, each member doing their own part to advance the kingdom of God. None of this will happen if we don't start teaching people how to become leaders and how to grow in wisdom. So I would like to leave you with one thought that a wise person shared with me. Delegating tasks creates followers. Delegating responsibility creates leaders. So I'm going to say that again. Delegating tasks creates followers. Delegating responsibility creates leaders. So what does that mean? When somebody comes up to Dee and says, hey, there's this need and we should do this about it, he's like, great, you start it. You deal with that. So just like you cannot hand a child a set of car keys and expect them to drive, you cannot expect people to step up and be the leaders that our churches and this world so desperately needs without giving them the tools and the training to do so. So I urge you to start a leadership program in your own church and see what the transformation does.
Well, good morning to everyone. Welcome to Dee's Leadership Seminar. You may hear a time or two in the next few days that everything rises and falls on leadership. I certainly agree with that statement. I think the evidence is clear. If one were to look around on our culture and society today, there is a famine of leadership in our neighborhoods, cities, state, and country. Leadership starts in the home. Can't lead in your home? How can you lead elsewhere? This starts one family at a time. Growing, cultivating leaders is not an overnight process. It will certainly take consistency and patience, and it starts with you. My name is James Farmer. I'm 52 years old. I'm an employee here at Jefferson Baptist. I'm involved with several ministries inside and outside our church. This was not, however, always the case. I came to JBC in 2017. My wife and I moved to Jefferson in 2016. We started looking for churches to attend, and JBC was our third we tried in the area. I was still working as a juvenile corrections officer at the time, so juggling my schedule was at times a challenge, but we started to attend regularly. Sometime after our initial period of attending, Dee approached me and said, "Hey, I'm doing a leadership class in the fall if you're interested." I started asking people about the class, getting various responses about what the expectations were, but all had told me to take it if I had the chance. As the timing would have it, the class starts in October annually. I had a significant spiritual challenge to deal with. My son, who was about 25 at the time, told me that he was agnostic. As a father, this was devastating news. I obviously looked at myself and thought, what could I have done differently? And as it turns out, there was much that I could have done differently. Said to myself, if I'm to have any opportunity to influence my son, it must start with me. I can't ask my son to believe in a God that I did not live for. That fall, I enrolled in Dee's leadership class. As I progressed through his Leadership 1 class and absorbed the lessons, we were asked to read several books through the 8-month duration of this class. Many of the books were impactful, thought-provoking, and self-reflective. There was one book that stood atop the others. That book was called This Was Your Life, Preparing to Meet God Face to Face by Rick Howard. Pastor D had told us that out of all the books that he encourages us to read, that particular book has the hardest time making its way back to the shelves. After reading it, I know why. This book calls us to account as Christians that we will indeed all stand before God at the judgment seat, where we will all give an account of what we did with our lives as saved members of his family. What did we do with our gift of eternal salvation? Did we bury it and keep it hidden until he returned? Or did we put his word, his gospel, his book out into the world? I truly envisioned myself standing in front of Christ and him asking me, "What did you do, James, with your free gift of salvation?" My answer, the truth is, I was doing nothing with it. This was a defining moment for me as a man. I was doing nothing for Jesus after all he had done for me. What a lazy, wicked slave I was to this world. As you may hear a time or two in the next few days, Pastor D will probably talk about goals. After reading This Was Your Life, I had added a goal to my short goal list at the time. That goal was never say no. You heard that right. My goal was to never say no to anyone if they asked me for help with a project, a ministry, or any work to be done. I asked myself this question, why not me instead of why me? Some people in our church started to take notice. In fact, it was asked of my wife, does your husband ever say no to anything? Shortly after finishing the book and setting the new goal, a position opened in the church to be the janitor. I said to myself, why not me? I asked Pastor D about it, the position, and I let him know that I was interested. I was soon the new janitor and in charge of a small volunteer list. I'll be honest and say that when D asked me to speak today, he wanted me to talk about ministries that I've started. However, I was somewhat concerned because I did not want to come across as boastful to you folks. Because it is not about me, it's about Jesus, and because of him, I was afforded the opportunities to serve him. So here are a few of examples of things that I was motivated to do. My wife and I started Heavenly Donuts ministry here in town This was when businesses were struggling and suffering during COVID. And this business agreed to hand out a free donut each day with a sticker that we came up with that said, Heavenly Donuts, Jefferson Baptist Church. My wife and I started Heavenly Coffee Ministry in town with a different business that hands out 10 coffees a week with the same sticker on the cup. My wife and I started Manna from Heaven with a local restaurant. The business would pick 2 families a month where they were eating to receive a gift card for $50 that says, God loves you, and so do we at Jefferson Baptist Church. Have a meal on us. Bob Williams and I envisioned starting an alcohol and drug sin addictions group last year. We started with 4 people. This is the most excellent way. Some of you may have heard of this. We now have regularly 22 people that now attend, and we are preparing to run a commercial on 107.9 Hope to reach those in the community. The goal, reach as many unchurched people suffering with addictions and lead them to Christ, who is the only one that can truly set them free. My wife and I were moved by Ed and Carol Smith's passion for the Hope Kits they were making with their own money. We came alongside them to share in creating the costs for them. In these bags, there are items like stocking caps, socks, hygiene items, hand warmers, snacks, and Bible tracts. I had thought, why not a Gideon Bible in each? So I specifically became a Gideon solely to provide Bibles in these kits to hand out to the homeless. My wife and I have been doing homeless ministry now for 3 years, and I kept coming to Llewellyn Pearson, who was the leader of Homeland Missions here at JBC, and asking if she would like to participate in helping us in this field. With a resounding yes, Homeland Missions has supported this ministry. Llewellyn had approached me and asked if I would prayerfully consider joining the board of Homeland Missions, and I said, I don't need to pray about it. The answer is yes. Why not me? In our homeless ministry, we were introduced to Be Bold Street Ministries, which is what this is, out of Salem Heights Church, and have worked with them on several outreach events. After getting to know their leaders, Matt and Josh, and serving side by side with them, they have asked me to prayerfully consider accepting a position on their board as a community outreach organizer. You might have already guessed my answer to them. I didn't need prayer. The answer was, why not me? My wife and I led small groups in our home going through Focus on the Family's Truth Project as taught by Dr. Del Tackett, which then led me to teach the class here at Jefferson Baptist with Pete Perkins as a discipleship class, which then led me to teach the material to JBC's homeschool high school youth, which we do on Tuesdays. After COVID shut down our Awana program in 2020, there was a desire put on Jeremy Owen's heart to start this program back up. He asked for leaders and people who would be willing to help. Why not me? So I lead the high school youth in our Awana program, which now currently has over 150 youth attending. I'm involved in other ministries and an accountability group, but I will stop there for now. I've been asked about burning out, about being exhausted, or not having enough time. I suppose that's a valid concern from an outside perspective. However, every time I start thinking of how tired I am, I remember vividly imagining stand before Christ and him asking me, what did you do with your life? I cannot stand here and honestly say that what I have done has changed any lives. Those are seeds that may not bear fruit until I am gone. I can say that I feel confident that I have tried and that I wasn't lazy. Dee told our class a story, as he often does, about his relationship with his father and how much it affected him in his life. I had no such relationship with my father. However, I had the opportunity to live vicariously through Dee and imagine what an earthly father would have been like. The story he told was about having a lot of work to do on the dairy, and at the end of the day, when they were all tired, his father would say, being tired at the end of a good day's work is the best feeling in the world. I would venture a guess that being tired at the end of the day for Jesus is even better. My desire is to spend the minutes, hours, and days left on earth serving Jesus instead of myself, to give him the first part of my day instead of the last, giving him more time instead of less, giving sacrificially instead of conveniently. Our time is a currency, like money. We choose to spend it, often on distractions instead of the mission, which is to share the gospel. I want to spend more and more of my time giving it to the Lord instead of myself. Am I there yet? No. I have more time that I can tithe to the Lord. Whatever time he gives me, I will try not to waste it. Will I be perfect? Probably not, but I will try. It all started with a leadership class. If I had not taken this leadership class, I do not think I would be who I am today. I am not the same man my wife married, or the same father or grandfather to my children. My wife is now taking Dee's leadership class. It starts with one person, like a rock thrown into a pond, the ripple effects of leadership can be seen and felt in your home, in your church, and in your neighborhood. I will conclude today with this. I recommend Dee's leadership class to everyone. I can't stress this enough. Now more than ever in this state and country, leadership needs to be taught. For the last 28 years of my service as a corrections officer, we used evidence-based standards for everything in the penal system. 8, I repeat, 8 out of 10 of our young men came from single-parent households where just the mother was present. From a Christian's perspective, this is unacceptable. It should be unacceptable. If we want to change the future, we must start today in our homes. We need leaders now more than ever. I will leave you with my favorite quote from C.S. Lewis. For you will certainly carry out God's purpose, however you act, but it makes a difference whether you serve like Judas or you serve like John, and I don't want to be Judas. Thank you.